Hi everybody and welcome back. In one of my recent videos, I mentioned that I am in the process of collecting the vintage apple coats for the vintage apple trophies in order to increase my general ranking. The way in which I like to collect vintage apple coats is to match the horse's breed and coat color to the vintage apple breed and coat color. Even though I was active on the game at the time that we had this version of coat graphics, which by the way are not the original coats like it says. I guess it's original in terms of these were coats designed by the game. So they're horse original coats, but they're not the very first coats that we had on the game. This is probably the third, at least the third version of graphics that we had. I can't always recall which breed had which coat graphics, and I wanted to show you the website that I use in order to match those up for the ones that I don't always remember. Do be aware that you cannot use a vintage apple on a draft horse because we did not have draft breeds on the game at the time that we had these coat graphics. So draft breeds, they're not compatible. You can choose donkeys because we did have donkeys at the time. Also, even though you can apply, say, a curly coat to a thoroughbred, you can do that because they're both a riding horse species. You cannot, however, apply the, I believe, a primitive pony coat. I think that's what one of the pony coats are called. You cannot apply a pony coat to a horse breed. You also cannot apply a horse coat, such as a curly coat, to an Australian pony. So they are species specific. Now, if I had unicorns lined up here, I can only choose from unicorns. So all of these coats would then show unicorns. If it has wings, it'll show wings. Now, the vintage apple also works differently from the golden apple in that you can add wings to your vintage apple coat and the coat will have the wings appear. Versus if you want to choose from a golden apple coat with wings, you have to apply the Medusa's blood before the golden apple because the vintage apple is like the fifth element. These coats have separate designs with horns and wings. That's why it doesn't matter the order in which you apply the items. For the golden apple, it does, because not all of those coats were designed with wings. In fact, only a small handful of coats have a design for multiple species. So this here is the website that I use to match my golden apple coats with. This is Horse Wikipedia. It's not the official Horse Wikipedia. It's a player-made website. I'm not sure if it's still active, or at least it's not currently updated, but thankfully it is still up. That way I can see all of the breeds. However, I do believe there is one missing. I want to think that the Selle Francaise were introduced on the game just before we got the current breed of coat graphics. Not 100% sure, but that's fine because even for the newer breeds, if you want to add a vintage apple coat and try to match it to a newer breed, just use a breed that was around back in the day that has the same graphics. So let's say a Canadian horse. There's some other new breed on the game that has the Canadian horse graphics. You could just apply this graphic, which I believe is the purebred Spanish horse coat from the vintage apple. So that's how I do it with any of the newer breeds, but because I do actually like to match them, I just tend to choose older breeds just because it's more fun. So I will include a link to this website in the description, and that way then you guys can look that up. So you could either scroll through all of these to see them, or in a quick way to find whatever breed you want. Say you have a Newfoundland, you have a Newfoundland that you want to apply the vintage apple to. Do Control plus F on your keyboard, type in Newfoundland, which I already had pulled up, and boom, you go straight down to the Newfoundland pony coat. So I'll show you a couple of examples of how I go about doing my search in my application, and then I will go through and apply some vintage apples. So let me have my screen split up, that way then I can do this as a side-by-side. So I should have this set up so that you can see both the Horse Wikipedia page and my horses page. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples of totally different breed graphics, just so you can see a good example of how you can go about doing the search, even though, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but we're going to go through it. And then I do have some horses that I will actually apply the vintage apple on, but they're mostly the same breeds, just because these particular horses here, I'm not sure if I'm going to keep these, just because like this one's really low GP, but this is a Brumby with the strawberry roan coat color. So we're going to pull up the vintage apple page, and this is a horse. So again, we only get the horse species to choose from. And now on the horse Wikipedia page, I'm going to see if we had Brumbies available. And we did. So this is the Brumbie. I really like this coat graphic. This one's super cute. This is one where I like both the old version and the new version of the coat. So we need primitive. I already know this is the primitive, but if you did not know this was the primitive coat, then you could just go through one by one until you found the one that you're looking for. Primitive, and then Strawberry Roan. And I also want to make sure that if you're going for the trophies, it's a coat that you don't yet have, and it's marked by the little horse head icon, or you can just use the search filter. So you can also use the coat filter, but then you have to go through all these. But Strawberry Roan happens to be at the top, and there you go. I matched up my coat color. And if you're curious on, I know some of the vintage apple coats show extra coat colors. You can also, that aren't currently available now, I think the Arabian maybe shows Carmelo coats, which I don't think are currently available. This website also lists the coat colors that we have, or that were available then as well. So there's the Brumbie. Next one is a Newfoundland pony. This one I am going to apply a vintage apple to because it's a foundation. This one I like to keep my foundations that I get now. So this one is a dun Newfoundland, and this happens to be unicorn. So we'll get the unicorn pony coats to choose from. So Newfoundland pony. What's the Newfoundland look like? We're going to do that again. And there we go. We get the Newfoundland pony. This one, I believe, is also a primitive pony, but again, you can just go through to find which one you're looking for. I need a dun coat, which unfortunately I already have, so this one I will not be applying because a duplicate coat is not going to do me any good for my trophies. But I do have another Newfoundland pony unicorn that's a foundation that I can use for this. It's a chestnut, which is not available. I'm pretty sure it's chestnut, so that one will be available. All right, next one is a quarter pony. Mouse gray quarter pony. So let's pull up the vintage apple page again. Quarter pony. This one is a little bit trickier. It's either the light pony or the heavy ponies or the sports ponies. So what do we have for quarter pony? This is the quarter pony. Now, this is one of those instances where I prefer the old graphic to the new one. I think the old quarter pony, Connemara, these were so adorable, and the new ones I'm just kind of over. So we're going to search light pony. Got on the first try. This is a light pony, and then we can look up mouse gray in the filter, or you could scroll through the pages if you wanted to, but here's mouse gray. This one I already have as well. But that's what the quarter pony coat looked like. And then I have one more as an example. This is a Tricaner. This one was one of the last to be added before the vintage apple was removed. So this is a Strawberry Roan. So let's look up the Tricaner. And here we go, right below the standard bred. This one is, I think, a light sports. Tricaner had the light sports graphic, and Strawberry Roan. Strawberry Roan is right there. Really pretty. The dun was nice too. I like this one. I'm indifferent, I think, as to whether I like the new version versus the old version. They're slightly similar in the build of the head. But yeah, that one I don't really have a preference for. I think some of the coats look really pretty, maybe a little too shiny for the old version, but flax and liver chestnut's really striking just because of how contrasty it is. Okay, so those are some examples. Let's actually apply some vintage apple coats. These are going to be a little bit more boring just because they're mostly the same breeds, because these are all that I have available for horses that I know I'm going to keep for a long time. And these ones were not bred by me, because I want to save the horses that were bred by me for limited edition coats. So this one is a thoroughbred, a liver chestnut thoroughbred. So I'm going to search for thoroughbred coats, not worn by me. Liver chestnut? Yep. Where'd it go? Liver chestnut. And this is the curse of using a smaller screen. Let's hope I can click it properly without using passes. And there we go. That one has a liver chestnut. I'm not sure I like the old liver chestnut coat as much. It looks more like a dark bay than a liver chestnut. But there we go. That's one down. Next one is a black Tobiano. Yes, black Tobiano Vanner. So, vintage apple for you. I think I have 4 VAs in stock. This one's easy. You know, it matches the breed and coat color. Not worn by my horses. Let me scroll over a bit. Ooh, the liver chestnut and the flaxen liver chestnut are beautiful. See, it looks very similar. The dark bay and the liver chestnut look very similar. Like, this looks brown. That just looks like a dark brown as opposed to a black mane and tail. Anyway, do I have a black Tobiano? I do not. Now, the dun Tobiano is beautiful. Oh, that's mouse gray. We don't want mouse gray. Black Tobiano, vintage apple from my inventory. Apply to horse. And there we go. Another thoroughbred. This one, flaxen liver chestnut. Yes, flaxen liver chestnut. See, it's not, the flaxen liver chestnut is not as contrasty on the new mold. We need thoroughbred, not worn by my horses. Flaxen liver chestnut. Oh, see, it's so much prettier. Look at that compared to that. I like the build of the new thoroughbreds because it's not, these are more racing fit. That's why you can see the ribs. And you can't see that for the newer molds. The newer molds are more filled out. So we've got flaxen liver chestnut thoroughbred. Apply. Vintage apple from inventory. And now I need to go find one more horse to apply a vintage apple to. I mean, I don't need to, but I have 4 of them. I might as well use them. Okay, so I found that chestnut Newfoundland unicorn pony foundation that I was searching for. This is the one that I'm going to apply my final vintage apple to. And by the way, I got all of these vintage apples from catching the balloons from the UFO fight. I managed to catch 4 or 5 vintage apples from that, so that was quite nice. And then just to refresh our memory on what the Newfoundland coats looked like, it was the primitive pony coat, and then a chestnut, which I think it said I did not have. This is my last vintage apple for the day. It would be really nice if they would add the vintage apple to the exchanges, because for some reason, even though it's now available in the black market permanently for passes, it's still not in the exchanges. And when the exchanges were first introduced, pretty much the general rule was that if it's not available in the black market for passes, then you can't put it in the exchanges. And that was why the vintage apple was originally not in the exchanges, because you couldn't buy it in the black market. Well, now you can buy it in the black market, but it's still not in the exchanges. So that is my last vintage apple for the day. These are cute. The legs look a little like he's frozen, like a statue. But some of the coats I liked from back in the day, and some of them I don't. Just kind of depends. The donkeys were cute. And then some of them look super similar. The thoroughbreds are almost the exact same. The Arabians, pretty much the exact same. So that's it for applying the vintage apple. Does anybody else have any preferences as to whether they prefer the old coats, the new coats? Do you have some vintage apple coat colors that you really want to get? I am just obsessed with the flaxen liver chestnuts and the strawberry roans. And the Mustang especially has some really nice flaxen liver chestnut coats. So thank you all so much for joining me today, and I hope to talk to you soon. Bye.